All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the last OpenLM webinar for this calendar year. This will be the last session from the current schedule that we have been accommodating throughout the course of the year 2021, and it's mainly targeted at newcomers to OpenLM who maybe want to know a little bit about how you can manage license servers remotely, how the OpenLM brokers interface with the license managers that you have on your premises, on your license servers, and understand how OpenLM can actually configure and remotely manage those. So for the next year, we will be back with the new schedule with a little bit of less of repeating the topics for the webinars, but completely fresh and new based on mainly cases of the feedback that you have provided to us. So without further ado, let me actually begin the presentation. So I would like to introduce you a little bit to the mainstream license managers that are still being used in the engineering license world, and talk about a little bit how the OpenLM Broker, the main component of the OpenLM server, interacts with these license managers, and our ideas for some service offerings that we have for the remote management of these licensing systems. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about the mainstream license managers. So if you have been within the engineering world for quite some time, you probably know these. These are the industry standards. Majority of the applications that are being used for CAD, CAE, or PLM are using one of these license managers. So the primary ones are FlexLM, LMX, DSLS, IBM Loom, BetaLM, CodeMeter, Sentinel, and there are many others. But if you look at the ratio, what is written in this presentation probably covers like 90% of the applications. And the remaining 10% are being covered by all the tens of other more smaller proprietary license managers. Sometimes an individual application will have just a single license manager of its own developed directly by the software producer. So which one is the most mainstream? It's the FlexLM. This is the most widely spread license manager, whether you look at the product portfolio from Siemens, Teamcenter, Anix, the product portfolio from Autodesk. These all use the FlexLM license manager. The one that FlexLM was the first one, and this is why it's so widely spread and so widely used. So OpenLM does offer a very extensive FlexLM support. It's one of the first ones that we have actually developed, and we can do a lot with this license manager. This license manager is very specific because it actually does create two different types of log file. One is a debug log file, which can be read by a normal person. The data in this log file is not encrypted and also can be utilized by the OpenLM broker to get the utilization output. A FlexLM licensing system comes from Flexera, and as you may know, the Flexera has their own license reporting system. And with the FlexLM, you can also create the RL log file, which I'm showcasing here, which is an encrypted data set of the utilization that this license manager produces. The FlexLM license manager is controlled through several commands, lmadmin and lmgrd. It contains readable license file. This means that even though the actual quantity is encrypted in a hash file within the license file, you can open the license file and see all the products that you have within this license manager, and you can also see the quantity, the start time of the license, and the end time of the license. This is in contrast with some of the other license manager that we will discuss a little bit later in the presentation. And another staple of FlexLM is an option file or option files, which do allow you to control how the license manager behaves, and do allow you to for example, assign licenses to certain users or machines or groups, or block access, define borrow time, how long can the user stay license for an offline use. Another of the mainstream license managers is LMX. This is very similar to FlexLM. It was developed a little bit later. As far as OpenLM support for this license manager goes, is pretty much the same. Again, there is a specially formatted debug log file that we can read and we can extract the data from. And there is a command which is called LMX and util that allows you to configure and control this license manager. And again, I will showcase at the later point how does actually OpenLM approach taking the utilization from this license manager or from all those license managers. And again, same situation as with the FlexLM license manager. The license file is completely readable. You can see the quantities, the expiration dates, even though, of course, you cannot edit the file because the actual quantity and everything is encrypted in a hash file. But on top of that, you can see, like I said, the quantity or the expiration. And a configuration file, again, goes with LMX, where you can actually configure how the license manager behaves. Another staple of the industry, even though this is more targeted, is the DSLS license manager. This is a proprietary license manager coming from Dassault Systems, and it is usually used in conjunction with the Dassault Systems application portfolio, one of the primary ones being CATIA, or as they call it now, 3D Experience, but all the other applications coming from Dassault as well, like Innovia or Abacus. One of the interesting things about the DSLS license manager that unlike FlexLM or LMX, it actually does provide a comprehensive graphical user interface out of the box, which does allow you to measure a certain extent of control for this particular license manager. So you can actually see the license list, you can see a basic utilization, you can see the users, you can configure authorization rules, you can allow, deny, or reserve or limit licenses, and can also be controlled through to a command line, which is again something that we do utilize when we look at these license managers from OpenLM perspective, and through our broker extension actually control and get the license utilization from this license manager. One of the more obscure ones that is slowly fading is the IBM LAM. It was widely used in the past, and again, Dassault Systems was actually one of the key players in the field that did utilize this license manager for their older version of CATIA. We do support LAM in the same way as DSLS. It also has a small graphical user interface, but it's very old and it's slowly fading to obscurity. If you have ever been dealing with this license manager, you can understand why. The DSLS is much better than the old LAM system. Now, another license manager that we do offer extended support for is BetaLM. Again, this is a proprietary license manager coming from the Beta CAE company, which is famous for its ANSA software, one of the key players in the computer-aided engineering field. This license manager does not offer any graphical user interface. Everything is controlled through a command line, and the primary command is BetaLM stat. And again, I will illustrate how this actually interacts with the OpenLM Broker and how we can actually gather the utilization from this license manager. The last that I wanted to mention are CodeMeter and AHSP, which are a little bit different because they do utilize a USB dongle support, which is a small hardware key that you need to plug into the server machine, and it works in conjunction with the software. This can cause some problems in case, for example, the dongle gets corrupted. You cannot just contact the vendor and replace it with a new license key. You need to always wait for the new hardware to be delivered, and then you need to plug it into your license server. So a little bit more complicated, and we again offer very comprehensive support for these two license managers. So that was to be the intro from me, and just to outline for anybody who is maybe not familiar with the problematic, that these are the license managers that are most widely used in the engineering world. Now, let's move to the next part of the presentation and actually showcase how is OpenLM interacting with these license managers. So in OpenLM, we do have the broker component, which is a key feature of OpenLM to get better data. Even though we still do enable what we call remote sampling of the license manager, which is basically a system where the OpenLM server is grabbing the data remotely, we strongly suggest to all of our prospects and customers to install the OpenLM Broker, because it is something that is running actually at the license manager level itself, and it's configured individually per license manager and can offer a better utilization, actually narrowing the data set down to a single second, and also enables you to utilize the license manager commands and log files to provide a certain degree of remote management. And we will showcase how this actually works on a live system as well. So all the new license managers that are not currently supported by OpenLM are being added strictly through the broker functionality. Now, let's have an example for the FlexLM licensing system. As you can see, this is a screenshot from the OpenLM Broker where I have configured several FlexLM license managers. And at the previous point in the presentation where I was discussing the FlexLM licensing system, I told you that there is this lmutil command, which basically does allow you through a command line and in a realistic scenario, if you wanted to, in theory, you could just run the command line and get the output of the license server. But the broker does this for you, and that is the first step of how we actually get the utilization from that particular license manager. As you can see, if I run the command or I execute the command through the broker, I can get the status of the license manager, and I can get a data inquiry from the license manager. So you can see in this case, I can see what licenses are in use, how many are in use, how many licenses are available. And for the purpose of disclosure, I'm not showcasing the individual users, but you could also see in this output the individual users and who is taking which license and how long have they been using it. Now, the broker also has a second step, which basically takes the log file and compares the utilization that it's getting just by listening to the license manager with the log file itself to make sure that the data set is actually perfectly correct. And when we are talking about extended functionality, for example, something like tracking license denials, this is again a key part, because that cannot be achieved just by listening at the license manager port, because the denial information is nowhere to be found there. So for this, the broker is actually connected to the debug log file that is being created by the FlexLM licensing system. And in that debug log file, every user session is recorded. Even if a user gets a denied license, there is a record, and the OpenLM broker can take this information and project it to the OpenLM server, where you can actually then see in the reporting function the denials that happen. I'm sorry, let me go further. So for the DSLS example, again, the basic premise is very similar to FlexLM. As you can see, what I mentioned earlier, the DSList server command is a command coming directly from the Dassault System License Manager. And again, this command with the certain parameters can get you the status of the license manager, or can get you the data inquiry, basically all the utilization for all the users that are actually taking licenses from this particular license manager. So the technology is the same, the command is a little bit different. And again, same principle applies as for the FlexLM license manager, that the OpenLM broker is actively checking a log file that is again being produced by the Dassault Systems License Manager, the DSLS. And through that is comparing the data sets, making sure that you actually get accurate down to 1 second utilization. And again, as was the case with the FlexLM, to be able to actually see the denials, even with DSLS, this is not something that can be achieved just by listening to the port or utilizing the command. You need to see the log file that is being produced, because once again, the log file is the place where the license manager is recording every session that is happening, even the sessions that get denied. And again, this is how the broker can actually take these two data streams, combine them, and then project them in the OpenLM server, where you can see the utilization or you can see the denials. The technology for the other license managers is exactly the same. So for LMX, we can see that the broker is utilizing the LMX end util command to again get the status or get the data inquiry. And for beta LM, again, the beta LM stat command, the broker is just taking the command at least and gathering the utilization through that. Now, I am going to show you on a live system how can the broker actually control the license manager remotely. As we said at the beginning, the broker is not there to just gather utilization, but it also does allow you to exercise a certain measure of control and management of the license manager remotely. So you can imagine a scenario where you have maybe 50, maybe 100 different license servers and license manager installed there. Usually, probably through your day-to-day operations, you need to log in there if you want to make any changes, if you want to start, restart, reload, put the new license file in. OpenLM, through the OpenLM broker, does actually allow you to give a certain control over this. So I'm going to cancel the presentation just for a second here. Let me move to a live system that I have prepared, and I will showcase you how can we do it. This will be pretty simple, but it showcases the functionality that is very important, and it can save you a lot of time. If you are working with a big environment, this can actually be very useful. So I'm going to reshare the screen here. Just give me a second. Now, as you can see, now I am running an OpenLM interface. I can showcase you at the beginning. We have a system that contains around 183 license managers. So just managing this in an organization, having to go one by one, logging remotely, either through remote desktop, or if you are running on Linux through an SSH client, and doing changes to the licenses can be extremely time consuming. Now, through the OpenLM front end, if you have the broker installed, you can just go to the interface. And as you can see on my right screen, there are certain actions that you can actually take that affect the broker directly. So you can remotely start the license server. You can remotely stop the license server. You can remotely reread the license server. And to the right, you can reread the license file. So rereading the license file is one of the most obvious one and one of the most useful ones because it allows you to the manage files, actually go to the license manager. As you can see here, I can download the log file. If I want to upload a new license file, I can do that as well. And we are actually bringing a new functionality very soon where you will be able to actually directly read the license file through this interface and compare the content. And once you have compared or did your changes or uploaded a new license file through here, you can simply reread. And the license manager will take the new license file into account without you actually having to even go to the system, connect to it, manually replace the license file, and then restart the license manager itself. So, of course, at a single glance, this doesn't seem like it's too much hassle, but if you count all the hours that you can actually save over the course of the year for the person who is doing the license management, this can be a very useful feature. Now, let me go back to the presentation because this was really a very quick showcase. And now what I wanted to also mention a little bit, and for next year, we will actually do a dedicated webinar that will be there to talk about the professional service offerings that we are trying to gather. But for now, we are also thinking of offering the license management as a service. This is for us in early stages of planning. We are mostly gathering the feedback from our customers. This would entail only L2 support because it is not in our power and in our resources to provide the layer 1 support for everybody. So we would love to hear your thoughts on this matter. I hope I satisfied, at least I can see in the audience, there are some new people here that weren't here before. So you understand how the brokers are actually interacting with OpenLM, how they are interacting with the license manager, and how OpenLM can actually gather the data, create the utilization reports, and provide a certain degree of automation through the remote management. Now, with that, I'm going to open up the Q&A. You can use the Q&A box, and I'm also going to enable the talk button for everybody who is actually willing to speak to me, and feel free to fire up the questions. Don't be shy. This is, as I said at the beginning, the last webinar of this year, and it will probably be 2 to 3 weeks before we see each other again. You can use the chat box, you can use the Q&A panel in the Zoom meeting, or you can just unmute yourself and speak to me directly.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
So I was a little late to your webinar here. I'm sorry. So for utilization, how far back in history can we look at for utilization? And I'm sorry if you already covered that, but
No. That we do this webinars repeatedly, and we understand that there are new people, and it may not be covered. So the utilization, how far can you go? That depends on how you set up the system. Like let's say you set it up today, you start gathering data, you can go ahead for 2, 3, 4 years. That depends on your requirement. Like for as long as you keep the brokers running, they will keep gathering the utilization. We do have customers who actually have utilization for maybe 5 to 6 years, and they still look at it through the reports.
Because that is an issue for us right now, because the latest version of FlexLM that comes with SolidWorks, it only does 4 days. And that's not really enough data to understand utilization. So,
oh yes, of course. So that's one of the primary advantages of the system, right? Because we grab the data from the license managers. It's being stored in the OpenLM database, and it remains there accessible for US for as long as you choose.
okay, that's great. And it's compatible with anything that's FlexLM based. Is that the premise?
Yes, anything that's FlexLM based. Like I showcased the main license managers. If you go to our webpage and you look for supported license managers, we do actually support, I believe at this point, 60 plus of them. But it's what I said at the beginning. We know that the ratio FlexLM is like the three quarters of the industry, right? And there are many. But we create the support for the more individual license manager, usually based on the customer requirement. So there are cases where it's just one license manager showcasing one application. But for FlexLM, anything you're running on FlexLM, it's supported right out of the box.
So then our IT department has a very tight cybersecurity policy. Has your company gone through that stringent analysis yet with other IT departments, or?
Yes, it's pretty common for us. First, you need to understand that we actually do have two offerings of the system. One is completely on-premise, so it's just on your tight network, and there is no way to access it from outside. So that's like the first step, the first workaround. We do offer a security service with the product, so all the components are being authenticated through the OAuth 2.0, which is the industry standard protocol. And all the data in transit between the components can be encrypted by SSL.
Okay.
And if you are further interested, we as a company are right now in the process of acquiring ISO 27001 and SOC 2 compliance certifications as well, because as you correctly pointed out, we do hear a lot about this from our customers, and it's also in our best interest to go through the security checkpoint. So if you have the best practice or the common practice that we are used to is whenever we are talking to a prospect or to a lead and they are trying to put a test version of our system on their premises, there comes a questionnaire from the cybersecurity department, usually that we do our best to answer. If need be, we can also do a personalized call and talk about the security measures or any queries that you may have from your security department.
So do you offer different levels of your package? I just took a quick glance at your website before the webinar. I saw the one base package. Is that what the offering is? I can look at your website more extensively, but since I'm talking to you, I thought I'd ask.
So there is the primary product is the OpenLM server. What you see me present, the OpenLM Broker, that is automatically bundled with the server. I mean, we still say that it's an optional component, but it's strongly recommended to actually have it because as you can imagine the scenario, if you just have the server that is remotely querying your FlexLM license managers, it's all dependent on the network. The moment you have the broker is gathering the data for the license manager locally, and if there is a connectivity problem, it buffers the data and sends it to the OpenLM server. So this all comes right out of the box.
So how does the service fees work? Is it a base price with a yearly maintenance? Is that kind of
the service offering? I'm not. So here's the deal. Depends on how far you want to go with the services. Whether it's just a service offering to install the system or to upgrade the system, or you are looking maybe at something more comprehensive, like have a daily attendance to the system or daily attendance to your license managers. This would be best discussed outside of the scope of the webinar.
Well, I was talking about. I get that. I was just asking about the software cost and software maintenance.
No, the software cost, you can pick whether you want to go a perpetual and an annual maintenance, or you can go with the subscription. Annual subscription.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, sorry. So I misunderstood the original question. It was I spoke about services at the end of the webinar. So yeah, these are the two primary options. We do also offer a solution that is based completely on our cloud. So you don't need to actually install the server and the database. and everything goes on the premise. So you are just tied to the brokers, and then you can basically go around the circle of having to actually maintain the system. We do that for you along with the upgrades and everything. Then the only component that you would require in your organization is the broker that takes care of taking the data from the license managers, as I demonstrated, and then sending it to our cloud.
Is the cloud a single sign-on qualified?
Yes, we now offer Okta integration, ADFS, and Azure AD. And we are looking at implementing more SSOs as we go.
Okay, that's really the only pullback I've seen so far with our cybersecurity to be single sign-on qualified.
Yeah, of course, when it comes to the cloud, the cybersecurity questionnaire is usually more extensive, and since the data is actually handled by us and not by you, but again, we can accommodate that. That's one of the primary reasons we are looking at the SOC 2 compliance, because it's.
If we did the cloud base, can you, if I would want to be the designated internal administrator, would I have access to the same data? Or
Yes.
Would I have to do a request for you to get access?
No, if you are the administrator of your account, then you can of course enable other users in your company to actually go ahead and create access point for the system. For all intents and purposes, for the user when they are using the cloud-based solution, it's a web-based application. You just utilize the web interface, you log in. What I showcased what I showcased for 2 minutes in the presentation, that's actually the cloud interface, and it's exactly the same as your OpenLM interface, on-premise interface. Just in case of your on-premise installation, it's running on your server somewhere on your network internally.
Okay. I'm not gonna. I guess if I turn it, I guess I'll defer the rest of my questions because it turns a little bit more into a sales call at this point. So.
No, that's look, it's fine from my perspective. Unless other people are talking, we can go ahead, and this is for me a platform to engage the customers or the prospective customers and answer the question. Maybe somebody is also interested in what you are asking. It's just they're shy to ask.
That's all I have for today. I appreciate your time. And you're to send a recording of this to the attendees?
Yes, the recording is available after the webinar. Like not directly after, but we can send you the recording. No problem.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much for opening up the chat. I'm not sure I understand the question. If you can clarify for me, you can unmute yourself.
You're talking to me?
No. I have a question in the QA panel from
okay,
Ion, and I'm not sure I understand. Meanwhile, if anybody else is curious or interested to see, yes, it's a pure service. And the scope or the level of the service can always be discussed and agreed. I now understand what you meant. If this is a service that we can only offer to OpenLM current customers, that they are already working with the system or not. No, from my perspective, if somebody is interested in us to do a license server management, we are open to offer that. But I want to be pretty clear, because maybe it was not as clear from my presentation. And as I said, this is only something that we are investigating, that I'm, as the one responsible for services, thinking about, is to offer this as a form of L2 support. So not 24/7, because that is not something that we have the resources for. And it's very hard to achieve, since it entails, a primary connection to the company's premises. But as an L2 support, meaning, debugging why the license manager is having problems, whether the license is correctly configured, whether the options files are correctly configured, whether the debug log is correctly being written. All of these could be offered as a service from our perspective. I hope I answered the question. Hello, Vinay. For ESRI related products like ArcGIS, yes, this is actually our home turf, because ArcGIS, I believe, was the first product where OpenLM was developed with. So there is a very extensive support for ArcGIS that goes beyond just measuring utilization, but we do offer extended functionality for ArcGIS and the ESRI products like remote suspension, etc. So yes, definitely. And the value you add is pretty obvious. Like, you are looking at a company system. The first level that we offer is you start gathering the utilization. You can see for the concurrent license whether you are reaching the peak of your own licenses or you are way below. Maybe you are reaching the peak way too often and you get denials. So you are not looking at this from the perspective of saving money on reducing the licenses, but saving money because your engineers cannot utilize the product. So there are multiple ways to look at it. With the agent that I just mentioned, and ArcGIS was one of the first products that was supported for the OpenLM agent, you can track actual usage of the product, which is basically another variable that comes into play when you are looking at license utilization. So you can see, based on a simple graph, that your licenses are doing well. But now another question can come into play. So is the user actually actively using the product, or is he just running the application on the back end and, you know, browsing the internet, or maybe he went for the coffee, or he just didn't turn off his computer and the ArcGIS is still running on the back end, consuming a license that can be consumed by somebody else. So this is another layer of information that we can convey, which is another value for you to add when you are looking at reducing. Or if you know that somebody is just running the program on the back end, but they are not actively using it, maybe the time could be spent for another user who could use that concurrent license. So yes, ESRI is one of our home turfs, and I can definitely recommend it. I hope that answered your question. Hey, you're welcome. All right, we still have time. If anybody else has anything to ask, please shoot it at me. I'd be happy to answer. All right, I'll leave the space open for another minute in case somebody else comes up with something, and otherwise we will call it for today. Okay, so seems nobody has any further questions. Thank you very much for attending and listening to me. Thank you very much for your interest in OpenLM. And I will see you next year with a completely new schedule of webinars with completely new topics that are based on what you guys told us, what feedback you provided to us. Have everybody a good day. Bye-bye.